There's something about rural dawns.
They rise soft and slow over the cornfields, cloaking the land in golden silence.
But on that June morning in 1997, the sun spilled over Iowa with an unease it couldn't shake.
The soil still breathed, the livestock still stirred, but beneath it all, something had already gone wrong. Barbara Garber was the kind of woman whose routine never wavered. Rain or frost, she punched in at the same hour, her boots in the dirt before the rooster even bothered. So when she failed to show up that day, her absence rang louder than any alarm. Her employer, a seasoned farmer who'd seen droughts, floods, and the slow churn of life on the land, felt the disturbance before he even reached her doorstep.
The pickup she always drove was gone. Her front door hung ajar like a bad omen. He stepped inside and felt the room freeze.
There, slumped like a discarded doll in her armchair, was Barbara.
A gunshot had split her world open.
The blood that painted her cheek had dried. Her breakfast sat untouched. There had been no struggle.
No signs of forced entry. Just the cold, meticulous finality of execution. Mahaska County wasn't used to this. The sheriff's department had seen bar fights, drunk driving, and maybe the occasional domestic squabble. But murder? That was a city thing.
Chief Deputy Paul V. A man whose badge had collected more dust than blood, stood over the body and understood, with a chill in his gut, that his world had just shifted. The state crime lab came in with their brushes, swabs, and hushed voices. They catalogued the shell casings, .22 caliber, 4 of them, scattered like breadcrumbs near Barbara's feet. No signs of struggle, no signs of theft, except one thing, the truck. Her dark green Dodge pickup, newer model, the kind a man might covet, was missing. That detail stuck out like a bullet casing in fresh snow. Word spread fast through the county, faster than the sheriff's dispatch could handle.
And then came the neighbor.
She lived just down the road, sharp-eyed and sharper-tongued. That morning, she'd seen something strange.
A blue station wagon, she told the deputies. Didn't recognize it. Backing out of Barbara's driveway like it belonged there. The detail hit like a jolt of caffeine.
In a town where everyone knew everyone, and every vehicle they drove, a foreign car was like a wolf in church.
It wasn't just strange. It was wrong.
But before the sheriff's men could chase down that lead, the radio hissed again.
This time, it wasn't a murder. It was a bank job. A heist in Gibson, a speck of a town with more silos than people. The kind of place where the only crime you expected was a bounced check. But this time, the criminals hadn't come for credit. They came for cash. And they brought guns. Gibson, Iowa.
A town so small it didn't even have its own stoplight. Just 70 souls, a post office, a diner, and a bank that had never been robbed until that morning. At precisely 10 a.m., the calm of Main Street was shattered. Two men stormed through the bank's doors like they'd rehearsed it 100 times.
One wielded a shotgun, the other a handgun. Their faces were masked, their movements swift. No shouting. No panic. Just cold efficiency. Against the wall, one of them barked. The teller and branch manager obeyed. No customers were present. No security guard. It took less than 5 minutes for the bandits to fill garbage bags with $65,000 in unmarked bills. Then they vanished, leaving behind silence and the stench of fear. There were no cameras. No video. No fingerprints worth a dime. Just 2 shaken employees and the ghost of a robbery no one saw coming. But someone had seen something. A child, no older than 10, watched from across the street. She'd been pedaling her bike near the curb, daydreaming her way through a summer morning. That's when she saw them. "Ski masks," she whispered. Jumping out of a gray car. She didn't witness them leave, but that one detail stuck: the car was gray. Nondescript, but telling. It became the first solid lead in a case that was unraveling faster than anyone could contain. Sheriff's deputies expanded the perimeter. Back roads, gravel trails, cornfield exits, every route a desperate criminal might take. 2 miles out, an officer stumbled across a gray sedan abandoned in a clearing. The engine was still warm.
like it had just been kissed goodbye. The vehicle was registered to an 18-year-old woman named Eileen Schultz. Local. Lived just a few miles away. Red flags rose like smoke. Why ditch your car in a field when home's just down the road? Deputy Paul V didn't wait. He drove straight to her house. The front door was unlocked. The silence inside was unnatural, not the peace of a country home, but the hush that comes after something terrible has already happened. She lay there on the floor, lifeless. Eileen Schultz. Just 18. 2 shots to the head. No signs of resistance. No struggle. Just execution, cold and close range. The pattern was impossible to ignore. .22 caliber shell casings glimmered on the floor near her body, the same type used to end Barbara Garber's life. 2 women. Both shot in the head. Both caught in the crosshairs of something that didn't feel random. This wasn't about passion or revenge. It was about something far darker. A neighbor's account cemented the timeline. I saw a green pickup in Eileen's driveway, she said. About half an hour before the bank robbery. That was all the confirmation investigators needed. The truck, the one taken from Barbara's home, was now the getaway car. 2 murders. 1 stolen vehicle. And a federal crime scene. That's when the FBI stepped in. Special Agent Scott French out of Cedar Rapids was assigned his point. He arrived with a quiet calm and a briefcase full of resolve. Where local deputies saw chaos, he saw connection. This wasn't a scattering of crimes. It was a chain. And someone was pulling the links tight. With 2 bodies in the morgue and a bank vault stripped bare, the manhunt shifted into high gear. And at the center of it all, glinting like a phantom in the summer haze, was that dark green Dodge pickup. Barbara Garber's missing vehicle had become more than just a stolen ride. It was a moving crime scene. A symbol of violence, a rolling monument to a morning gone violently sideways. And now, it had been seen outside Eileen Schultz's house moments before her life was taken. The implication was clear: whoever killed Barbara had driven straight to Eileen's door. This wasn't random. It was orchestrated. By the time the FBI established their mobile command post inside the Mahaska County Sheriff's Office, tensions were simmering just beneath the surface. They worked swiftly, systematically, setting up tip hotlines, canvassing neighborhoods, and sending the truck's description to agencies across the Midwest. Every green Dodge in Iowa became suspect. Deputies were chasing shadows down country roads, following up on reports that led to dead ends and lookalikes. And then, finally, the case shifted. A teenage boy came forward, eyes wide, voice shaky, but certain. He'd seen 2 young men in a green pickup rolling through Oskaloosa that morning. Couldn't make out the passenger, but the driver? He recognized him. Jamie McMahon, he said. That name echoed through the task force room like a bullet ricocheting off steel. The FBI ran his file. Jamie wasn't a hardened felon. No major arrests. But his rap sheet painted a picture in shades of instability, suspensions, run-ins, a reckless attitude that often brushed against the law but hadn't yet broken it outright. Until now. He'd dropped out of school. Couldn't hold a job. Rumors swirled that he'd fallen in with the wrong crowd, and now, he was gone. Vanished since the morning of the crimes. It didn't take long to find his shadow. Christopher Kaufman, Jamie's stepbrother. Just 18. They weren't close growing up, but something had changed. Lately, they'd become inseparable. Agents began stitching together the trail, and every new thread pointed in the same direction. McMahon and Kaufman had teamed up. And they were dangerous. A blue station wagon seen backing out of Barbara's driveway, previously a riddle, was now a crucial clue. It had been lent to McMahon by a friend. A friend who now realized what that kindness had cost. The wagon placed Jamie at Barbara's house before her death. The FBI was closing in. Then came the strangest detail of all. Friends told investigators that Jamie McMahon had once been obsessed with that truck. Not trucks in general. Not vehicles. That specific Dodge. He'd tried to buy it from Barbara months ago.
But he didn't have the money. Now she was dead. And her truck was his. It was no longer a murder for gain. It was a murder of fixation. Possession had cost 2 lives. And the spree wasn't over yet. With McMahon and Kaufman now marked as fugitives, the search shifted from forensic to feral. They had a 12-hour head start and a stolen truck that was slowly becoming unrecognizable. A sharp-eyed teenager tipped the scale once more. He'd seen the green Dodge again, but this time, it looked different. Subtly altered. Spray-painted, clumsily, a slightly darker hue. Like someone had tried to give the devil a new face. This revelation sent a pulse through the FBI task force. The suspects weren't just running. They were adapting, shifting, watching the rearview mirror. They knew law enforcement was gaining on them. Word spread across counties and state lines: be on the lookout for a green Dodge pickup, recently repainted, possibly traveling south with 2 young men inside. Armed. Dangerous. Unpredictable. The lead paid off. A farmer outside of town called in, voice steady but laced with dread. "I saw it," he said. "That truck. 2 boys driving it. They didn't look like they belonged here." He gave them something better than a sighting. He gave them direction. They were heading south. That single line redrew the map. The FBI expanded their net through Missouri, Kansas, and toward the border. The suspects had over $60,000 in cash, no clear plan, and a growing appetite for evasion. Then the story took a chilling turn. 2 teenage girls vanished. 16 and 17. Local. Bright. Carefree. Gone without a trace. Within hours, the pieces snapped into place. The girls had been seen the night before laughing, drinking, flirting with none other than Jamie McMahon and Christopher Kaufman. Now they, too, were missing. Were they kidnapped? Were they hostages? Or had they climbed willingly into that green Dodge, unaware they were getting in beside monsters? For the FBI, it changed the stakes. This wasn't just a manhunt anymore. It was a race against time to save 2 innocent lives. Then, like a crack of thunder in the dark, came a break. A motel clerk, sharp as glass, recognized the group from the news. She said they'd checked in 2 young men, 2 teenage girls. Paid in cash. Kept to themselves. But it was the truck she remembered most. Spray painted. Still green. Still deadly. By the time agents arrived, the room was cold and empty. But the clerk gave them direction again. They left this morning. Headed south. Now the FBI was certain the killers were fleeing toward the border. Toward Mexico. And time was bleeding out fast. As the green Dodge rumbled south, the line between fugitive and tourist blurred. What began as a blood-soaked flight from justice had turned, briefly, into a twisted vacation. McMahon and Kaufman, still armed and flush with stolen cash, were seen in Branson, Missouri, a city of lights and leisure. But they weren't hiding. They were parading. A motel clerk there didn't just recognize them. She remembered them, how they laughed too loud, tipped too well, and stayed out too late. 4 of them, 2 men, 2 teenage girls, partying as if there weren't warrants hanging over their heads. They acted like they were on spring break, she told agents. Not like they'd just left 2 bodies behind. And then came the detail that unraveled everything. They dropped off film at a photo shop. Disposable cameras. That was the crack in the armor. FBI agents moved fast. They found the photo lab. Retrieved the film. Developed every frame. The prints laid out like a grotesque scrapbook, Jamie and Christopher grinning, arms around the girls, neon lights behind them. Carnival rides. Hotel rooms. Drunken smiles. A portrait of delusion. But one image stood out, a casual shot, unposed, almost forgettable. In the background, parked like a serpent in the grass, was the green Dodge pickup. They still had the truck. Still driving the same ghost of Barbara Garber's life. By now, the girl's demeanor had changed.
According to later interviews, it started as rebellion, a thrill ride with dangerous men. But as the drugs flowed and the stories darkened, the air thickened with dread.
One night, high and unraveling, McMahon pulled the curtain back.
He told the girls everything. How he'd stood over Barbara and pulled the trigger. How Island had let them in and trusted them. And how he hadn't blinked when he ended her life. "I'd do it again," he said, voice like gravel.
"If I have to." The mask was off.
What had been a wild escape was now a prison on wheels. Terrified, the girls begged to go home. And for reasons no one could ever explain, perhaps ego, perhaps calculation, McMahon agreed. He gave them cash.
Put them on a bus north. Cut them loose.
And then he and Kaufman turned the Dodge east.
Florida was next.
But before they crossed state lines, they made a mistake.
The kind you can't wash away.
Before slipping out of Missouri, McMahon made a move that would ultimately write his downfall. They stopped by the Des Moines River.
No witnesses. No fanfare.
He stepped out of the truck with a duffel bag.
Something heavy. Something he didn't want found. Without a word, he hurled it into the water.
He told the girls to forget it ever happened. But the river didn't forget. Days later, an off-duty state trooper was casting lines by the bank when he spotted something caught in the rocks.
A black bag, soaked and swollen. He dragged it ashore, unzipped it, and the past spilled out. Ski masks. Coveralls. A woman's wallet. And the driver's license of Island Schultz. The bag was a time capsule of crime. The FBI finally had physical proof, tangible, undeniable. With this evidence, federal prosecutors locked in the charges, 2 counts of murder, armed robbery, carjacking across state lines. And now, the hunt had teeth.
They traced the fugitives to Pensacola, Florida.
A gas station sighting. Then a motel check-in. Then silence.
Until a local man phoned 911. There's a green pickup behind the motel.
2 guys. It looks just like the one from the news. Law enforcement didn't waste a heartbeat.
They sealed the perimeter.
Quietly evacuated the building. SWAT teams took position. FBI agents set up a command post across the street. Snipers on rooftops, rifles aimed at curtains. But what they found inside the room wasn't just McMahon and Kaufman. There was a third man. A stranger. Unknown. Possibly a hostage.
The negotiator picked up the motel phone and dialed in, calm as a whisper.
A voice answered, not McMahon's. Not Kaufman's. The third man.
"They picked me up hitchhiking," he said, barely audible.
"I didn't know who they were."
Then he lowered his voice, trembling.
"They told me, they're not going to be taken alive." Outside, agents stiffened.
The clock was ticking.
The negotiator pleaded.
Urged the man to step outside.
Escape. He tried. But McMahon was listening.
"You talking to the cops?" he barked.
The line went dead. For the next 2 hours, the air turned to glass.
Inside, the 2 fugitives were spiraling, paranoid, exhausted, strung out. Meth had hollowed their nerves. The walls were closing in.
Then, a crack. McMahon relented, just a little.
He told the hitchhiker, "Go.
We don't need you."
The door opened. The man stumbled out into the arms of agents, shaken but safe. With him gone, they turned to Kaufman. "Chris," the negotiator said, "you don't have to end it here.
Walk out." Another hour passed.
Then, finally, the knob turned.
Kaufman emerged, hands in the air, eyes haunted. He dropped to his knees. Only one remained. Inside, McMahon paced like a caged animal. He loaded a pistol.
Agents heard the metal slide chamber around. "I won't rot in prison," he said over the line.
The negotiator's voice never broke. "You still have a choice." There was silence. Then the door opened for the last time. Jamie McMahon stepped into the light. Unarmed. Head bowed.
And the nightmare was over.
Back in Iowa, the interrogations began. Kaufman broke first. He told the story like a man shedding weight.
It was all Jamie's idea, he said.
The truck. The money. The murders.
She let us in, he said of Island Schultz.
She trusted him.
McMahon, faced with overwhelming evidence, ballistics, witnesses, and now the duffel bag, pleaded guilty.
So did Kaufman.
Federal charges sealed their fate, life without parole.
No courtroom theatrics. No appeals to sympathy.
Just 2 lives, locked behind steel, where the sun barely reaches.
Jamie McMahon now serves his sentence in Leavenworth, Kansas.
Christopher Kaufman resides in Florence, Colorado. 2 names that once haunted the Midwest now sleep beneath concrete. And in Oskaloosa, Iowa, people still speak in hushed tones of the summer when peace shattered, when the FBI hunted ghosts across 1,000 miles of cornfields and highways and brought them, finally, to justice.